This video is about joining pieces to one another to form a hexagon-shaped table topper. Honeycomb quilt block pieces that are large, like this one that's coming out in the spring, do require pad stitching because the piece is so large the fabric that'll be on one side will pull away and distort during regular use of the product. So we've pad stitched this, so that means sewing through all layers. We use clear plastic black thread. The plastic thread is made out of polyester, that way it won't yellow when it ages or gets exposed to sunlight. And then we used a coordinating thread on the back to give the back more interest when the project is finished. The method of construction is identical, even if there's a piece of fabric that has been pad stitched in place. But this particular size honeycomb quilt does not require pad stitching, so I'm going to leave the decorative fronts off so I can better show you how the pieces are constructed. Also, there have been mistakes made in the cutting of these blocks, and if you haven't noticed, I'm going to point them out to you now. This block has the pumpkins running up and down in a straight line from point to point. These blocks, there are 4 of them, have the pumpkins running on a diagonal from the center point. So normally I would make sure that all the pieces were identical. The first step is joining these 3 quilt blocks together when I make a hexagon or honeycomb table topper. And before I do that, I try and establish the way that the strong pattern will look the best. And I've determined that actually joining the fabric this way is going to look the best when I complete this and add all the rest of my pumpkins. I've turned this fabric so it's a mirror image of this side. Joining the pieces together is pretty straightforward. You flip the one hexagon that's going to be on an end towards the middle, and that would be right sides together, and then you can choose to pin, making sure the pin joins the top dot to the top dot on the other side, and then goes through the bottom dot and then comes out the bottom dot of the other side. Pinning the pieces may work for you. I personally like to baste them together because you have to sew to that top dot and then secure your threads. So I like basting the pieces together because I don't like sewing so close to a pin, but that's me. You have to find the method that works best for you. In order to baste these pieces to one another, what I usually do is I go through the lowest dot in the series of dots on one side and then come out on the lowest dot of the side that's pressed against it. I leave a long thread tail, then I go the next dot up and make sure to come out at the next dot on the top layer of fabric. Then I actually circle around again because holding these stitches can be kind of troubling as you move on up the ladder. So all I did was re-stitch very big stitches over my last stitches. And then I simply go to the 3rd dot from the bottom and I exit it and make sure that the 3rd dot from the bottom on the reverse side is through my needle's through that, and then I just continue on up. Sometimes I have to rearrange the piece a little to get it to line up. Why are we pinning or basting on a diagonal? Because if you don't use a diagonal, these pieces will skew out of shape, and when they skew out of shape, one edge will always be shorter than it needs to be. So you cannot match pieces just by their edges because the edges are not perfect, and you will end up with 3 or 4 sides that look fabulous and then one that's too thin or too thick, depending on how the piece got pulled out of shape. Okay, I finished the top dot here, and now I'm just going to climb back down following the same holes. And when I'm finished, I simply trim my thread, leaving a long thread tail.